The draft stock of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels continues to rise and fall and fall and rise. This week feels like it belongs more to Jaden Daniels, in part because so much is being written about, talked about. The worst game Caleb played in his 3 college seasons, that was at Notre Dame last season. A scout told the great Bob McGinn, "I can't get the effing Notre Dame game out of my head." So, Keyshawn, you were at that game as an SC alum. Did that game convince you Caleb should not be the first overall pick?
No, it necessarily didn't convince me of that. What it convinced me of is he's got a lot of work ahead of him. But I've seen him play every single game that he's been at USC, whether it's live in person or on television.
Sure.
This is why I like to go to games. I like to be able to stand there and watch a guy. You know, a lot of people get caught up in the statistics. They get caught up in the zip of the football and all that. I'm looking at everything, not the numbers, because the numbers, I can throw a bubble screen and a guy can go 100 and I'm going to get the credit for it. It doesn't mean anything. What matters to me is when the protection breaks down, what's his eyes look like? When he's in the huddle, is his eyes as big as saucers? Or is he confident? Mm-hmm. And when I saw Caleb at the Notre Dame game, his eyes was as big as saucers, and he was not confident. Okay, he threw for about 200 yards.
It's 199.
199. He had like 4 interceptions.
3.
Probably could have been 10 interceptions.
Yeah.
He could have lost fumbles. It was a lot. You could contribute some of that to the offensive line. Finally getting the opportunity to go up against them dudes from Notre Dame look like grown-ass men, Skip.
I understand.
Them some big boys in that Midwest. Yeah. Could that be a factor? And I know he had a big-time game as a freshman coming off the bench against Texas and Oklahoma. So you would say that the
Red River rivalry.
Yeah,
Yep.
The Red River rivalry is a big event.
Yeah.
It's big. Mm-hmm. But Notre Dame.
It's big. I've been there. I've covered
in the
them.
mist.
I've been there. I've been there for
in the
USC,
lights,
Notre Dame.
And a little chilly.
Yeah.
It's a different environment.
Did you play at
I played Notre Dame and lost.
Okay.
I balled out, of course, but, you know.
Oh. Who knew?
But when you look at all of that, I factor into it, I'm saying, okay, it starts to make me think, what defenses has he struggled against? And which ones has he gone up against and just destroyed? So I started looking at it. Notre Dame was the best defense last season, 5th. He got destroyed by Notre Dame. Then I look at the Utah game, 13th defense he played against. He did okay, it wasn't nothing special. Then Washington wasn't good. They were at the bottom of the barrel, although they went to the national championship game. I look at Oregon, 22nd defense. Mm-hmm. You know, then I look at UCLA, 10th defense. Their defense was so good, we went and stole a defensive coordinator in Lynn and brought him over from UCLA to run our defense and get rid of Grinch.
Great move.
Who you telling? Mm-hmm. So when I start to look at those struggles, I look at all those games, not just Notre Dame.
No.
Now, his learning curve, assuming it's Chicago, is going to be drastic because he's going from one style of offense to another. Predominantly, he'll not be in the shotgun 90% of the time. Nope. He's going to be underneath the center, in gun on 3rd downs. He's got some receivers and some skill position players. But a lot is going to come with Caleb in Chicago because they got rid of Justin Fields. And they now have put him around a bunch of great players in Chicago, so the expectations are going to be through the roof.
Yeah.
Can he handle that moment? That's what we all got to figure out, because the Notre Dame game, that moment to me, in that particular time, was too big for him. And he did not pass the test. But I'm not drafting him based just on Notre Dame game. I like Jaden Daniels as a better pro prospect than I do Caleb. Doesn't mean I don't like Caleb. Doesn't mean if I'm sitting at 2 and Jaden goes 1 and I'm not going to take Caleb. That's not what it means. It just means I like the other guy.
Okay. I'm going to start off with, I watched a whole lot of Patrick Mahomes when he was at Texas Tech. And trust me, there were often times when he stunk. He had long, hard games, but he didn't have a whole lot of help around him, didn't have much defense to support him. And yet, his second to last year, he didn't stay as a senior, but he was gone after his junior year, so it would be his technically sophomore season. They came up to Norman to play my Oklahoma Sooners. we didn't have a very good defense, and we won the game 63-27. And Patrick Mahomes did throw for 233, but he threw 4 picks in that game. And trust me, it was a nightmare for him. He was awful from start to finish. Had a QBR of 55, which is right in the middle. I watched a game his last year at Texas Tech at Iowa State, and they were pretty good, but they weren't great. And they just annihilated poor Patrick. It was 66-10. He threw for 219 and 2 interceptions. His QBR was 34. It's pretty miserable because most college QBRs are much higher than pros. Okay, so I just rotten cherry-picked 2 bad games that he played. This was a nightmare for Caleb because, as you recall, I'm just watching television. First time they have the football, he throws it to them, and they return it to the 12-yard line, and they score in 3 plays. And it's just like, no. And they jump on you 7-0, and then you fight back. Caleb went down and got a field goal, and you kind of hang in, but then it breaks loose in the second quarter, and you're down 24-6 at half. He fought back a little bit in the third quarter, and they got it to 31-20, and I thought, okay, maybe they're going to make a run, and they couldn't make a run because your defense was horrible, and he was horrible on that day. It was by far his worst college game. And he had a QBR of 59, a little better than Patrick had in those 2 bad games that I showed you. But here's the point. I'm taking Caleb over Jaden just because he's got it. There's some it factor to him as a playmaker that I love. And I'm not saying he's a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying he's the best of this group. All I know is these numbers don't lie. When in 3 college seasons you account for 120 touchdowns throwing it and running it to only 19 turnovers, that will translate to the next level because you've been playing at high-level competition. You didn't play in the SEC, but still, you did play in Norman, Oklahoma, and then you played in Hollywood, and you won the Heisman Trophy, and you are a playmaker of extraordinary rare gifts. You got some things I don't often see. Is it Mahomesian? I'm not going to go to Mahomes just the way Rachel was saying with Ant-Man. Let's not go to Michael Jordan, but it's Mahomesian what he can do with the football, and he measured taller than I thought he was going to be 6 foot, and he was a full 6'1". So you've been around him a lot. So,
yeah.
Okay, and he's got nice base to him. He's got stature to him. He's 220-ish. So I'll take all that to my bank. I just take him over Jaden. I think he's a little more physical, but I don't disagree. He got off to a bad start, and he got saucer-eyed.
Yeah, it's all about what flavor you like, Skip. Yeah. Right? You gave me a bunch of numbers that are outstanding, and they stand out. But I can compile Jaden Daniels' numbers in his career at LSU. He won the Heisman. Yeah. Look at his numbers in the first 2 years, blah, 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 blah. I like for players that have gone through something, a little bit of a scar or two.
Okay.
Jaden Daniels was never the most highly recruited player, but he was recruited by AP and Herm Edwards at Arizona State. Started as a true freshman. He was a toothpick.
And he had some rocky moments.
And had rocky moments. And then they got, a little bit of a recruiting situation. And the coaches eventually was let go, but he transferred, went into the transfer portal, not even knowing what was going to happen. Brian Kelly says, we like him. Takes him, puts him at LSU. His first year at LSU, it was like any quarterback, right? It was up and down. The people at LSU had just seen Joe Burrow. They're mad at him. Get him out, bench him. That's the whole SEC, the South. They're mad at him. But he stands in there. He stays the course.
He did.
He doesn't worry about any of that. He comes back, bounces back, has an historical SEC year, wins the Heisman Trophy, and I look at it and I go, well, he got some scars on him. And he, decided, okay, I'm going to stand in here and I'm going to take this abuse and I'm going to deliver.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
I like that. That's something that I like because he's going to go to potentially a Washington team that hadn't won a whole lot in recent memory, and I don't think that's going to affect him at all.
No.
Now you got Caleb going to potentially to Chicago where there's a lot of expectations. He ain't got Andy Reid as his play caller.
He does not.
And quarterback coach like Patrick Mahomes.
Good point.
You got, you're dealing with something totally different.
But
let's see.
You do have some pieces around.
You do have some pieces, but let's see if Caleb can be the Caleb from when he won the Heisman opposed to what we saw in the Notre Dame game.
All right. It's that time of year.
Draft time.
We overreact to every little thing.
Including the Cowboys.
There's nothing to react to. All right. Has LeBron's legacy been at all